Fallout Equestria Survivors Guild, Chapter 9, Stable Tech. The human voice can never reach the distance that is covered by the still, small voice of conscience. Mahatma Gandhi.
Good morning, Stable 48. This is the Overmare with your morning announcements.
The voice of Overmare Lila came over to my pip-puck.
As some of you already are aware, we have some new guests in our little stable. Most of them will be part of the breeding division and incorporated into the next cycle a few months from now.
Oh, wonderful. Just what I needed. First thing in the morning, a reminder of how screwed up my life had become since yesterday. I sighed and looked at the still sleeping form of Cherry Blossom, and she actually seemed content to be in my embrace, and I had to admit, it was really nice to have another pony close to me like this.
All new stable dwellers and returning ponies are to report to the atrium for your orientation at 8:30. In other news, Colonel Twister of the Enclave has assured me that more Enclave citizens will be coming into the stable in order to fulfill their end of the agreement within the week. He has the assurances of President Winterbreeze herself, which that's enough out of you,
I said as I switched off my pip-buck. Cherry's eyes fluttered open as she looked up at me.
Good morning, sleepyhead. Good morning,
Cherry said, and blushed a little when she realized how close we were, but she just smiled and rested her head on my chest.
Thank you, Scootaloo. For what? For being there when I needed it,
She said with a sad smile.
Sometimes it feels like it's just me and the little one against the world. You know what I mean? Yeah, I do.
I said, and nuzzled her a little.
Cherry, you don't have to be alone ever again. I promise that I'll help you as best as I can. Oh, thanks,
Cherry said with a nod.
You have no idea how much that means to me.
We stayed there for a long time, just holding each other in our forelegs, and I looked over into the pink eyes of the mare, whose bed I just shared last night, and smiled a little as I brushed a strand of her mane out from her eyes.
Come on, we're expected into the atrium at 8:30.
I said as I released her from my embrace, and went to get my clothes on as Cherry did the same.
So, do you think the others will be okay?
Cherry asked, and the question made me pause for a moment. I wasn't quite sure how to answer it right away.
Well, I hope so,
I finally said as I put my coat on.
I really hope so.
We stepped into the atrium's bottom floor where the others were already waiting. Silver wasn't looking happy as she stayed close to where Clear Skies was. The poor filly looked more scared than anything else. And I sighed a little. I was scared too, to be honest. Stable 48 seemed to have survived this long, but I had no idea if that was gonna last. The Enclave didn't seem to be causing too much trouble in here, but that was only because the stable likely had something that they wanted. And I was afraid to know what that something was.
Alright, is every pony here?
A mare said as she looked up between us, and she was a unicorn mare who had a light shade of purple with a white mane. She levitated a stack of papers out of her bags.
Good. Alright. I'm Violet Star. I'm in charge of the breeder division here in Stable 48. I'm looking at your medical scans here from Dr. Clearwater, and everything seems to be in order, except for Miss Silver.
Uh-oh. I was afraid of this. I somehow knew this was gonna come back to bite us in the flank. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all.
Who, because of her medical condition, is not fit to serve in the breeder division,
Violet continued.
As such, she will be assigned to Chief Blackfire with the security division. Now, as Cherry Blossom will tell you, this normally means that she would be separated from the filly that is in her care. Wait, what?
Silver shouted, and I didn't blame her at all. She was about to make a run at Violet when the mare continued as if nothing had ever happened.
Miss Clear Skies will be allowed to stay with Silver in the security wing until she is of age,
Violet finished.
You really shouldn't jump to conclusions, Miss Silver.
Silver just grumbled a little at that.
As for the rest of you, Clear Skies will be sent to school with the other foals, and Cherry Blossom, you're to help with these two get familiarized with their new duties. You're all dismissed.
Silver and Clear Skies shared a hug before they went their separate ways, and I was worried all of a sudden. I didn't want anything to happen to either of them right now, and I just had a hope that everything would be okay.
Come on, let's get you two situated,
Cherry said as she turned and led us back towards the breeder wing.
So, as a rule, all the breeders tend to be bisexual, but we tend to lean towards one gender or the other,
Cherry said as we entered the common room for the wing, where a few other ponies were talking.
Mind you, I lean towards mares, and that doesn't always make a difference when the cycle comes around.
I flinched a little at that. The breeders were meant to be in order to make sure that the population of the stable was maintained. I was starting to get the feeling that more often than not, they were used for other purposes as well, which probably explained how Cherry wound up working in that brothel.
Oh, don't worry, you two. You won't have to take on any duties until you're ready, or until your names are picked in the cycle,
Cherry said.
Most of the time breeders are trained from a young age, but I guess we don't have time for that. Well, they could have at least put me up in maintenance,
Ark grumbled.
Why does Silver suddenly get preferential treatment? She can't have children.
I said as I remembered the conversation I had with the doctor the day before.
So, they can't use her in the breeding division, or, well, at least not for reproduction purposes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would do it.
Ark said with a shrug.
So, wait, then, what's the story between her and Clear Skies? I have no idea. Maybe she's adopted?
I suggested with a shrug.
It's the wasteland. There's likely plenty of orphans out there. Yeah.
Ark said sadly as she shook her head.
And with the war with the Enclave, probably even more to come.
We got a quick overview of the system for the breeding cycle, and I pretty much knew that already. During mating season, a number of both mares and stallions from the breeding division would be selected along with ponies from the main stable population based on genetic compatibility. Once the foals were born, they would be selected for one of the divisions and placed in its care to be trained until they were old enough to help around the stable. Now, technically speaking, there was also supposed to be scouts, which Cherry mentioned briefly. However, it seemed like they had started to be phased out since the Enclave arrived at the stable. The purpose of the scouts had been to keep the immune system of the stable dwellers strong, so they could leave eventually. After all, that was the point of all the stables, to eventually leave and make their home in the wasteland. I just hoped that the Enclave wasn't going to make that impossible for these ponies.
And, yeah, that's about it,
Cherry said.
So, are there any questions? Other than how we're gonna get out of this mess?
Ark whispered to me.
We'll figure that out, I promise,
I said before going back to look at Cherry.
No, that's about it. Thank you, Cherry. You're welcome,
Cherry said with what seemed to be like a forced smile.
We have the most important job in Stable 48 after all, don't we?
Yeah, I'm sure that's what every pony in a division said. Maybe this experiment was a mistake after all.
Scootaloo, can I talk to you alone?
Cherry asked, which surprised me a little, but I nodded in agreement.
Okay. I'll catch up with you later, Ark,
I said.
I expect her to be home by 2100 hours, young lady,
Ark said with a grin as she looked at Cherry, who just blushed when she realized what Ark was suggesting.
Very funny, Ark. We're adults, we don't need a curfew.
I protested, which just made the unicorn laugh and trot off.
I swear, she's gonna do this to get back at me for what I said in Crystal City. What did you say in Crystal City?
Cherry asked, looking at me.
Oh, I teased her a little about this one mare that she had a crush on,
I said with a shrug, which just made the pink mare blush more.
So, what did you want to talk to me about? Oh, well, you see...
Cherry said nervously before trailing off a little.
Pimento wants to talk to me, he's my foal's father, and I want you to be there, okay?
Oh, yeah. That was a very good reason. I didn't know a lot about him, but I really didn't like what she had told me so far. I understood that she wanted to be some pony to be there with her when she talked to him, but I wasn't sure why she wanted it to be me. Still, she was a friend, and Rainbow Dash had always taught me that you should never leave a friend hanging. I smiled a little and took her hooves in mine.
Okay, Cherry. I'll go with you. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you!
Cherry said as she hugged me tightly.
You have no idea how much this means to me.
I smiled a little as I hugged her back, patting her gently on the back. I was just happy to have the opportunity to help her out.
So, when are we meeting him? Well, for lunch. Come on, I'll show you around while we wait,
Cherry said and led me further into the breeding wing. I blushed a little when I caught myself staring at her flanks as she walked. They were rather nice and shapely, and... Darn it, Ark, now you got me thinking about her like that too. Oh my... Are you happy? After the tour of the wing, we headed up the stairs to the top floor of the atrium to go to the administration wing. This area was a lot better guarded with the Enclave and security posted outside pretty much every single door as we went past.
Why are the Enclave even interested in Stable 48?
Cherry commented out loud as we passed another stoic-looking Pegasus.
We're not really that important, at least not any more than any other stable. Yeah, I'm not really sure either,
I lied. I knew exactly why, but this wasn't the time or the place.
Maybe because of you? Wait, me? Well, your family line, I mean. You're descended from Applebloom, so that could make you an asset to the Enclave and getting access to some stable tech facilities.
I said with a shake of my head.
Most relatives of myself, Applebloom and Sweetie Belle, are accounted for, and you were the only one that we didn't know about. Well, both of us.
Cherry said, and I nodded.
So, do you have any descendants out there, Scootaloo? I do, actually. She's a wild little Pegasus filly from the Crystal Wasteland.
I said quietly, once I was sure I was out of the hearing distance of any pony from the Enclave.
She's a good pony, and I kinda wish that she was with me right now sometimes, but she has ponies that she needs to be with.
And Cherry smiled a little at that.
She sounds like fun. I'll have to meet her when we get out of this nightmare. Yeah, sounds like a plan. We just have to figure out how we're gonna get out of here first.
I said with a shake of my head.
So, any chance Pimento can help with that? I doubt it.
Cherry said with a shrug as we stopped in front of a door.
So, here we are.
I looked at her and placed my hoof on hers, giving her a reassuring squeeze.
It'll be okay, Cherry. I promise I'll be here every minute we're in there.
She smiled and nodded as she knocked on the door. After a minute, the door opened to reveal an Enclave soldier dressed in a uniform instead of their power armor. She looked us up and down for a moment before calling into the room.
Your guest has arrived. She brought the Dashite,
she said, which made me cringe a little.
Should we let them in?
Oh, yeah, let them in. She's disarmed, she can't do any harm to you. The stallion's voice came from inside the room. You're way too paranoid. The soldier just rolled her eyes and ushered us in. We were in a set of quarters that were fairly lavishly decorated. Seated at a table was a unicorn stallion with a dark green coat, and a yellow mane and tail that looked at us with a smile. Oh, Cherry, it's so good to see you again, he said with a smile as Cherry took a seat at the table. And, who's this? Your bodyguard? A mare friend, perhaps? What were you up to while you were out there?
That's none of your business,
Cherry grumbled.
I'm only here to help her out.
I see. Well, why don't you two get a chair for our guest? Pimento said as he gestured towards the two Enclave soldiers, who grumbled and went to get a chair. I apologize for the Enclave's treatment to you, Miss Scootaloo.
Oh, it's fine. They left me alone for the most part,
I said.
Well, other than a few dirty looks.
The Enclave has been a great help to us in Stable 48, Pimento said as the soldier set out a chair for me, and I took a seat.
I can see that,
I commented as I looked around and the food was set out.
I just have to know, what did they want in return?
Well, nothing but loyalty and access to some files, genetic files mostly, Pimento said with a shrug. President Winterbreeze herself came here to oversee the transition. I froze for a moment as my eyes went wide. Winterbreeze has come here to Stable 48. I really wish I could come up with one of those creative curses Little Pip liked to do so much right now.
The president was here? Wait, why?
Cherry asked as I tried to piece things together. I don't know. She spoke with my mother for a few hours and took a tour of the stable, met some of the mares like your friend Holly, and then left without another word, Pimento said with a shrug. She seemed friendly enough.
And how did you make first contact with the Enclave?
I asked.
Did you open the door and send a radio call out, or what?
No, that's the weird part. They just came to us, Pimento said with a shrug. They just showed up one day, opened the stable door, and offered us whatever we wanted in return for what I told you they took.
So, the Overmare sold the loyalty of the stable,
Cherry said with a sigh as she took a bite of food.
I didn't know the situation had become that desperate.
Well, why don't we ask the Vice President of Stable Tech? What was your plan for the eventuality that there would need to be an injection of new DNA for the stable to survive? Pimento asked as he looked at me.
Well, every eventuality was considered. At that point, you were either to use the scouting teams to reproduce with outsiders,
I said,
or you'd abandon the stable altogether. Cherry here actually had the right idea.
I see, Pimento said as he shot Cherry a look. Still, she put our foal at unnecessary risk, and she never should have—
I didn't want her to be raised like you,
Cherry said as she slammed her forehoofs down on the table in front of her.
I didn't even want to be mated with you, but the stupid system doesn't care about sexuality. You're nothing more than a stuck-up mama's boy who has had everything given to him his whole life, and I wanted better for my foal. Now, you're nothing more than a tool for the Enclave, and you disgust me.
Pimento just stared at the pink mare in shock. It was clear that no pony had ever dared talk to him like that, and I smirked a little. I liked Cherry. She had a certain style to her that made her an interesting mare. Pimento said nervously. It was clear that he was trying to figure out how to recover from that. Well, you see, we should,
Forget it. Come on, Scootaloo. Let's just get out of here before he makes me vomit.
Cherry said as we got up and headed out of the room.
Are you okay?
I asked her once we were a little ways down the hall.
I'll be fine,
Cherry said with a sigh.
I've just been having a hard time, and sometimes it feels like every pony just wants to use me for sex. Well, I don't. I know you don't, Scootaloo.
Cherry said with a soft smile.
You're one of the good ones, and that means a lot to me.
I smiled and gave her a hug. I couldn't help but feel a little guilty because I had been the one to create this experiment and put her in this position. But I was happy that she had managed to free herself from it. Now, I just had to make sure that she stayed free.